Thank you, Carolina, and good afternoon, everyone. I'll try to make my presentation in time, as Jim did. Well, I might start from an age-old saying in Mongolian. I think perhaps it's not even limited to my own culture. There's a saying that, who is a soldier? A soldier is a person who is fed for 1,000 days only to be used for one. And I think, and many of us now think, that this is somewhat an outdated and somewhat an archaic concept, belonging to the days when all-rounded national warfares were a norm. And now, with the conceptualization of the idea of citizen soldiers and growing importance of civil-military relations, the military is increasingly seen as a force for common good. We have now the notion of military service members, soldiers, as the force borne by the civil society, acting on behalf of citizens and for the citizens, is the foundation of such a concept of what we call citizen soldiers. Therefore, military participation and defense cooperation in the HADR is more just an issue of military's engagement with public. It is more functional and more value-based approach to modern conceptualization of the armed forces. The role of military in HADR has numerous benefits for both society and military itself. And of course, for society, we know that military is indispensable, is that first, only the military possesses all possible types of transportation capabilities and other hardware extremely useful in emergency situations. And also we know that only the military possesses trained, well-organized, and well-disciplined manpower with high maneuvering capability and extreme mobility. And this factor is perhaps of no less importance than the hard power capacity itself when facing extraordinary situations. Given the fact that dealing with possible humanitarian crisis or even worse, catastrophe, requires not only cohesive and swift action, but psychological and operational preparedness, contingency planning, coordination skills, equal emphasis on protecting and providing service, the military mindset and the modus operandi will be another indispensable asset. And last but not the least, the military also possesses other structures that have the same functions as their civilian counterparts, but with immense deployable capability, such as the military medical service, the Corps of Engineers, etc., which can function both as the first to come and last to go reserve in HADR, even when assistance of other civilian components is much needed. Still, military's role in HADR has much more benefits for the military itself, which is the fact that might be observed by some, but often overlooked by many. In a nutshell, military's participation in HADR is not simply a one-way street in which the military is the sole benefactor and civil society is the beneficiary. As a matter of fact, the importance of HADR for the national defense establishment is two-pronged. It has domestic and international and regional benefits as well. Domestically, the most important gain to defense establishment is perhaps HADR as a perfect public relations opportunity. The HADR is also a good tool for multifaceted skills development for members of the defense forces, skills that are equally useful for further humanitarian and peacekeeping missions, as well as for the real combat environments. Take, for example, the enhanced capability for constructing bridges in disaster-hit areas, or airlift under extremely damaged conditions, be it in rural or urban areas, or evacuation and emergency medical treatment under time pressures, such as the imminent shock wave. This training in action, in parentheses, is conducive not only for HADR, but also could be for possible warfighting functions of the armed forces as well. Since, let me say that HADR is not an altruistic concept at all. Moreover, HADR can serve broader goals, including national, political, and diplomatic posture. On the regional and international scale, multinational defense cooperation in preparing for and executing HADR carries its own practical significance. And I believe this is precisely the key theme for the session. Defense cooperation in HADR is the most convenient vehicle for confidence building, be it hypothetically strained relations between two neighbors, or be it wider regional effort to engage in all-rounded multilateral security cooperation. HADR helps eradicate barriers, whether political or sentimental, and contributes to accelerating political and humanitarian dialogue and cooperation. In a way, internationally, this function serves the role similar to an effective public relations campaign at home. But also the same pattern as the benefits at home, defense cooperation in HADR carries much more practical and utilitarian benefits than just international policy as well. Cooperation and coordination in times of humanitarian crisis or joint training and exercises in preparing for such results in greater interoperability of militaries, increasingly shared expertise and enhanced capabilities and capacity for all sides concerned. Now let me briefly introduce you to my country's own experience in military participation in HADR from both domestic perspective as well as the regional outreach. Though it's not often publicized, the Mongolian Armed Forces has a long-standing tradition in contributing to humanitarian assistance at home. Mongolia is not prone to some of the widely recognizable types of natural disasters, so one would not usually think of a large-scale airlift or evacuation during earthquakes or tsunami for the obvious reasons. Indeed, Mongolia's geographic location at the heartland of Asia prevents us from facing widely known forms of natural calamities. However, we are not immune from other specific forms of natural and man-made disasters and calamities little known outside of our national territory. Winter storms, severe snow droughts, forest and steppe fires, flood and storms account for more than two-thirds of the total number of natural disasters occurred in our country over the past half century. Sparse population prevented casualties of earthquakes. However, despite the popular stereotype, Mongolia is not an earthquake immune country as well. Sparse population prevented in the past outbreak of major pandemic diseases, but still this poses greater humanitarian, this is potentially posing greater humanitarian and human security challenge as well. So in all of the cases, the Mongolian Armed Forces are known to be the first responders and providers of manpower and equipments critically useful in eliminating their further damage, elevating both its prestige in the society and capability to operate under extreme conditions. Interagency cooperation in HADR at home. It involves a mechanism of primarily the Ministry of Defense, the Armed Forces, the Border Protection Authority, and the National Emergency Management Agency, as well as other line ministries and agencies. The more recent example is the Military in National Development national program enacted by the Cabinet in March 2013, allowing the service members of the Mongolian Armed Forces to participate in public works, environmental protection, and humanitarian assistance, even when not affected by natural or man-made disasters. This all helping create conditions for greater preparedness. My country also strives to play a more visible and much more constructive role in the international arena and in defense cooperation in HADR. It has initiated a number of regional and international outreach events, including bilateral and multilateral peace support operations exercise involving HADR, participation of its troops in UN peacekeeping missions with specific emphasis on humanitarian work, and plans to enhance the capacity of its military medical institution. Over the past 12 years, over 10,000 active duty service members of the Mongolian Armed Forces have took part in various United Nations peacekeeping operations and other international missions. And an average of 1,000 service members have attended joint training and exercises, most of which include HADR-specific lanes. Let me just cite a few examples. The signature training event of the Mongolian Armed Forces is the annual Conquest multinational peace support operations exercise since 2003, which has been co-hosted by the Mongolian Armed Forces with the United States Pacific Command and involving service members from nations across Asia-Pacific. Many countries are represented here and beyond. The exercise has two specific lanes designed for HADR, the Community Health Engagement, the CHE, and Engineering Civic Action Program, NCAP. They both started in 2004, and both CHE and NCAP, in the frame of exercise, have made significant contributions to the reform of our armed forces by cooperating and exchanging experiences side by side with other nations and increasing their professional skills. Just few raw numbers. A total of 523 service members have participated in CHE, including countries Mongolia, the United States, Canada, the Republic of Korea, India, and France. That's community health exercise. Engagement. The NCAP, Engineering Civic Action Program, included 1,155 military personnel over the past 10 years, including service members from Mongolia, the United States, Canada, India. In addition, for the first time in 2014, the HunQuest featured veterinarian training involving service members of both the Mongolian Armed Forces and border troops, as well as the PLA, People's Liberation Army of China. Besides multilateral exercises, in 2013 we initiated the first ever bilateral Mongolian Armed Forces People's Liberation Army of China exercise, codenamed Prairie Pioneer 2013, featuring joint training courses, discussion forum, simulation and field exercises, simulating an earthquake scenario. The troops from two nations had to respond to various situations, including road collapses, muddy roads, snowstorms, and fire alarms. Exercises were held for quake relief in urban areas, emergency electricity supply, establishment of water processing stations and makeshift shelters, as well as the provision of medical services. The training aimed to help the two military forces improve capacity in non-traditional security fields, such as the natural disaster relief, enhance pragmatic cooperation, and exchanges to promote the development of bilateral military relations. And HIDR has also been an important part of the duties of Mongolian peacekeeping contingents in Africa. Between 2005 and 2010, the Mongolian troops operating under UN MIL mission in Sierra Leone had provided humanitarian assistance to the local population besides their core responsibilities to provide force protection to the Special Court for War Crimes in Liberia. Since 2010, 6 rotations of 65 service members strong Level 2 field hospitals served in Darfur, Sudan, under UNAMID mission operating by the UN and African Union. And nowadays, an 850-strong infantry battalion of the Mongolian Armed Forces has been operating on the UNMISS mission in South Sudan since 2011. The mission also actively engaged in humanitarian assistance besides its primarily responsibility mandated by the United Nations. The Mongolian contingent has continuously provided medical service and treatment for the local population and assisted in building and renovation of schools, including one named after the President of Mongolia. In 2013, when the security situation in South Sudan deteriorated, the Mongolian battalion launched a refugee camp for 45,000 people, providing force protection, 5,400 tons of fresh water, as well as medical treatment for over 50,000 local residents. Well, to briefly sum my account for what my country has been attempting to do, let me say that Mongolia respects the significance of military participation in HIDR and, based on its own experiences, both domestic and international, attaches high importance to promote defense cooperation in HIDR. And we have to admit, for many, the idea of defense cooperation for HIDR is an undeniably noble cause. We all agree with that. However, in reality, few societies are tolerant to the idea of having foreign troops stationing or stepping on their soil, even in the face of and in the wake of humanitarian crisis. And that is the paradox of defense cooperation in HIDR. On the one hand, it's very critical, crucial tool in promoting confidence building and mutual understanding among nations, but on the other, it is largely limited by exercises and trainings, and it's somewhat restrained when it comes to action and practice. Therefore, I only can propose one very small and could be practical recommendation. Beginning from the first quarter of 2015, Mongolia assumes the chairmanship of the Forum for Security Cooperation of the OSCE, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. And in that capacity, we are willing to introduce the theme for defense cooperation in HIDR as one of the critical tools in building confidence among nations throughout Europe, Eurasia, Central Asia, and East Asia, and also including Asian partners for dialogue, many of which are present in this audience. Another concept of the OSCE Forum for Security Cooperation is Regional Code of Conduct for Military Cooperation and Military Transparency. Therefore, one could propose that similarly, the Code of Conduct for Defense Cooperation in HADR can be proposed for the countries in region, maybe East Asia or even more precisely Northeast Asia, so that these countries negotiate a mutual regional or sub-regional code of conduct in order to ease social, legal, and other possible logistical barriers. In itself, this can become an act of confidence building, and existing multilateral structures such as ARF, ADMM+, CSCAP, although it's more of a track two, can further promote this idea. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you for allowing this podium at this very august gathering.